Something very passionate about now is the ICL sizing, and why sizing is important is because that determines the vault of the ICL that we get post-operatively.
You were telling me too that there are modifications in order to achieve better consistency.
What we do now typically is that for every patient who comes into us, of course, we use the calculator from the patient, from the manufacturer of the lens.
From the 7th annual winter meeting of the IIRSI in beautiful Amritsar, I'm Josh Young. I'm here with my friend Gaurav Luthra. We're talking about a really interesting subject, which is ICL sizing. So before we have our conversation, in which we're really going to be talking about some exciting stuff, tell me, number one, why ICL sizing, or particularly why ICL missizing, matters. And number two, how is ICL sizing calculated conventionally?
Right. So, Josh, it's again a pleasure to be with you. And something very passionate about now is the ICL sizing. And why sizing is important is because that determines the vault of the ICL that we get post-operatively. So once we, traditionally when the currently most available ICL is from Star, I have no financial interest. We've been using that for about 20 years. So this got FDA approval somewhere in 2005. And at that time, they predicted that, you have to measure the white to white either with the digital calipers or with the op scan and add about 1.1 to that to get the right size. But they have a formula which is available online, which is called OCOS, OCOS, where you can put in your patient's data and it calculates for you what size you should implant. So typically, it takes into account just the AC depth and the white to white, which can be done either from the calipers or from op scan or from the pentacam. But you have to restrict yourself to one which works for you. And then it gives you a size. Now, the problem is it works 80 to 90% of the times really well, and you're looking for an optimum vault of somewhere between 250 to 750 microns from that study which Mark Packer gave, that this is the ideal vault. So you're aiming for something like 500 or 600. Now, what happens is that if you have a very low vault, and if you're using a toric ICL, that ICL is not going to be stable. One is that you'll have a very shallow vault. You may lead on to a cataract formation in various situations. But more importantly, the ICL can rotate. And if it rotates, your toric, your astigmatism correction goes away completely. On the other hand, if you get a very high vault, then you're potentially getting optic capture, pigment release, maybe, angle closure in the periphery. So it comes with its own problems. So top vaults will not be tolerated beyond 1000 for sure. But sometimes even a vault more than 700-800 is, troublesome, and you have to do a gonioscopy to see. So we are always trying hard, and we've been trying very hard to come to a situation where we can do better than what we've been doing in the last 20 years. So that's where today's session, I thought I can share more information on what we are doing.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, when we think of things like the calculation formula for a lens in conventional cataract surgery, you would never dream of calculating anything using just two parameters. So where do we go from here?
Right. So as you said, with the power calculation, we've come so close to getting plus minus 0.5 in more than 90-95% with all the new formulas and the new nomograms available. So same thing here. We are aiming to get better than what we were doing, like 80%. We want to become more than 90, 95, 97%. So essentially, there are two ways that, the more work has been done all over the world now. And these are all related to imaging. And so, there was a lot of work done on the OCTs, where they found that we have very good anterior segment OCTs available now. So building up from what Zeiss came up first, the Visante, now we have the Heidelberg Anterion, we have the MS39, and we have the Cassia. So they are very good anterior segment OCTs, and they all give us amazing amount of very accurate data. So basically, we are using surrogate markers. So instead of the white to white, which can actually vary more, you can actually go to the scleral spur to scleral spur, or to the angle distance, and you can also measure the crystalline lens rise and the lens vault. So these are some of the parameters, and even the lens thickness. Now these are 4 of 5 of the things which can determine ICL sizing and predict it in a better way than what we used to use conventionally. The other imaging that has been used is the UBM. So Dan Reinstein did a lot of work. He's been working for the last 7-8 years on his Artemis, which is an ultra high frequency UBM. Now the problem is that conventional UBMs, we used 2-3 of them over the last 10 years, and we found that they were not consistent, they were not objective enough, and inter-user variability was too much to measure the sulcus to sulcus. So the new UBM developments, Dan's, and of course now also the ICL Guru, again no financial interest, but I'm passionate about this. So we've recently started using that. So the imaging of the anterior segment and of the sulcus using these two different parameters, and then using AI-based modeling to predict the right size and to give a vault prediction. That's what is new. You
Yeah,
know.
I mean, it's really, I mean, you just say it and it really makes sense. But let me ask you this. I can understand that, that you're getting much more data now. And it's no shock that the predictions you get with more parameters are going to be better. But my question is this: how do you get those parameters from the image into, what is it, like an online calculator or something?
Right. So most of these resources are actually free to use. For example, the Lasso, which actually takes data from the Almaster 700 and from the MS39. It's a free resource available online, and anybody can just search for it. And there's a study which came out. So this Lasso and a couple of the others like the NK formula and the NK2 formula, you have to input data from your OCT, and it will probably take like this scleral spur to the scleral spur. So it has fields for 3-4 things, the lens thickness.
So it's
Okay.
a parametric data that I'm putting in
Right,
fields.
right.
Okay.
But going on, recently there was more work done, and I also use an Anterion. So I was kind of providing data for development of this new software called SafeVault ICL. Which a lot of work was done by Damien Gatinel and Alan Sard's group out of France. And what they've done is they've now made this available freely online for all Anterion users. And all you have to do is go register. And once you've done the Anterion scans for your patient, you just upload the 2 good images from there. You don't have to enter any data whatsoever. No biometric data is entered at all. So it just imports your images, and within seconds, it gives you an output of what different sizes of ICLs are going to give as a predicted vault. And that's amazing because it also tells you the percentage of certainty with which it is saying so. For example, if it tells you that use a 12.6 based on their measurements, it'll also tell you that you will be within that optimum of 250 to 750 in more than 97% chances that you'll be there. So if you use a 12.1, it'll tell you that, okay, now with this, you're probably going to be only 60% chance that you're going to be there. Okay. So that really helps the predictability of what you're going to get, and, the ability to customize. For example, if I'm putting a toric ICL, I would rather aim for a slightly higher vault. So maybe I'll choose the one step higher, as long as it's not going to take me over like 750 or 800. So if it's showing me that I'll get a 650 with a 12.6 and maybe a 400 with the smaller size, I will choose the bigger one. So it really helps to have vault prediction for all the different sizes, and the certainty with which you're going to achieve that vault, that has transformed our practice completely.
That is really, really, really interesting. So, just as someone who doesn't do this, I just want to ask you, the reason that you're going for a higher vault with toric lenses is for that extra stability from a rotational standpoint.
Absolutely.
Right?
Otherwise,
Okay.
a low vault, you can have the toric rotate, and then there can be a problem with that.
So, and when you upload the image, it's extracted. Their system is extracting the relevant data that it needs to.
Right.
Yeah, really, really, really interesting stuff. Does it work?
It works extremely well. So I'll tell you how it's helped us. What we do now typically is that for every patient who comes into us, of course, we use the calculator from the patient, from the manufacturer of the lens, but we also do 3 other objective measurements. For example, we use the Lasso, we use the Damien Gatinel and Sard's SafeVault ICL, and we also use something known as the Lucas, which is one of the Kim's formula for the Anterion. So essentially, when I'm choosing the size of the lens for my patient, I have 4 different resources sitting there telling me that, if I use, for example, this particular size, what is the vault prediction? So if I see that they're all speaking the same thing, I'm comfortable and I'm going to go out of that lens. If it starts showing me that there is a significant difference between what one is telling and the other, I go back and start looking at why that is happening. Maybe it's a very shallow chamber. Maybe it's an abnormal eye where the lens thickness is too much, or the lens vault or the crystalline lens rise is too much. So that kind of, raises the alarm bells and red flags and the yellow flags, and then you can go back and customize it. But see, the OCT does not look at the sulcus. So I was always looking at ways to kind of do that. And now I was just telling you before we started this talk that I have recently started using the new device as well, the UBM, which is more advanced. So that is something which I'm really excited about. It's just brand new, and I just have laid my hands on it and looking forward to that as well.
So it sounds really cool. And you were telling me too that there are modifications in order to achieve better consistency.
Right.
Do you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah. So this is basically ICL Guru is a new kind of a software or a nomogram developed by Zaldivar's group. What they're doing is they've used ultra high frequency UBM, which is specially customized to get very accurate measurements, and they're doing it with several manufacturers. And what it does is The essential problem with UBMs was that, when you have no objectivity, you have a very subjective measurement. So this does not take subjective measurements, and it has an auto alignment feature. So when you take it, it has a small bath, on which you place on the eye, and then you have an objective way of, placing the probe. And on the screen, you can see whether your probe is aligned correctly to take the measurement. So if your probe is aligned correctly, it keeps showing you the green or the red. The moment you are green on all dimensions, it automatically captures the data. So it's all objectively done. Now, once that high quality data is captured and very objective, it will export all these images to their server. And then using, deep learning modeling and AI, they will come up with a prediction of, again, all the 4 sizes, but they go beyond what the OCTs were able to do. They tell us about, optimum vaults and which vault will give what vault prediction and what size. It also tells you about stability. Now, that's something which nobody else did so far. So it'll tell you what size to implant, where the stability of the lens is likely to be very good inside. So it does a few more things than, what we could do with and this is like, something this is exactly where the lens sits. It's sitting in the sulcus. So if you have accurate measurements of the sulcus to sulcus, I don't think anything else is left to imagination. This is where what we all wanted. So I still don't have my hands, but the international reports from all the big refractive surgeons has been extremely good so far. So I'm very excited about this.
Gaurav, this is so cool. This is one of the coolest things I've heard today.
Right.
So I want to thank you for explaining this so beautifully in a way that I can.
There's one more thing I wanted to add quickly before we finish again. Another thing which is very exciting, again on the same thing, we are now using intraoperative OCT to do on the table ICL vault sizing. Okay, vault calculation. So what happens is, if we have an integrated OCT onto your microscope, you implant the ICL, you form the chamber and seal your ports, and then your ICL is sitting at a particular vault. So rather than wait for seeing a surprise the next day, we do intraoperative ICL vault measurements.
Wow.
And what we've started doing now with these various formulas that I spoke about, we now order 2 sizes of the ICL for all our patients. Okay. For example, if it's predicting that, I should be using a 12.6 and I'm confused between 12.6 and 13.2, both look good, I'll order both. Okay, and I'll have a standby lens sitting with me. So what happens is, suppose I implant, this has helped me in about 3-4 patients in the last 6 months, where we implanted the lens of what we thought was right, and we were getting a vault surprise on table. And we could see that this vault was either too low or too high. Immediately we could, on table, take out the lens and replace it with a different size lens, so that the patient doesn't have to come back to the OR on another occasion.
Wow.
So this has been another very, very useful thing for those people who have OCT on their microscopes.
That is so cool. Listen, thank you for bringing this topic. I mean, it's so futuristic and exciting. But mostly, I want to thank you for the generosity of your time that you shared with me today.
Thanks, Josh, and thanks for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be with you.
The pleasure is mine.